Yo yo yo, what is up you guys? So we are back to the plugin hunt series. So I think this is like season 2 now, because last time we did like 8 of these in a row, like for 8 weeks. So I guess this is gonna be the next 8 weeks or so. So I do have some plugins I want to show you. These plugins right here. So they're all very interesting on their own, especially these top two. So I guess we'll start with the Nova 67p, which again, all these download links will be in the description, so don't worry about that. This one is kind of interesting. It's like a parametric EQ compressor combined. It's not really a multiband plugin. It could be, but it's more of an EQ compressor combined than it is multiband EQ and compression. So very interesting there, and it is very useful for saving a lot of things in a mix. So we'll play around with some of that. And the second one is the Amp-Olio 2.5, or actually that's just what it's called right here. So Amp-Olio, and this is pretty much a multi-band effects plugin. So we have a lot of interesting controls, like we have saturation that we can apply to low, mid, and high, and distortion, same thing, harmonics, which I really love. We have a noise gate that's a multi-band, reverb in here as well. Stereo width. So you guys know in a past video I've talked about how to make a rack that splits frequencies for you. As a matter of fact, I can show it to you right now if I still have it. Okay, so I did have to look for it for a while, but here it is, and it basically does what the stereo width part of this does. So what I'm doing is splitting the low, mid, and high bands into their own separate racks, and you can see that they're soloed. So the low is soloed, and I set the range there. Then I follow that with the mid, and I follow the range according to whatever I've set to the other two, and that way on each of these I can apply utility and adjust the width, the stereo width of these. So you can see the low band is pretty much 0% width, meaning mono, and then the mid is kind of right there at 100, and high is a little bit more than 100%, so it's a little bit wider. So that's kind of great, because that's what I used to use to do that, to split the frequencies like that, so I can adjust the width of each. But now with this plugin I could just use this, and that's a big time saver. And by the way, down here is where you can actually adjust the frequencies, so you can set your ranges there, so low, mid, high. And it's actually kind of funny that this is called frequency splitter, because that's actually what I used to call it. So let's get into the last one real quick before I show you individually how each of these kind of work. And the last one right here is the saturation knob from Softtube. This last one is kind of hard to install, so you kind of have to choose the plugins you want to install from the installer. But if you just click on saturation knob in the installer, you'll only install this one. So what I like about this anyways, other than the download and the installation process, is it's actually really nice kind of saturated that I like. I'm a big fan of one knob type plugins. I love the one knob series from Waves and one knob series from other developers. So the fewer knobs you can give me on a plugin, the happier I am, because I do love plugins like this that gives you a lot of controls, a lot of parameters. And plugins like this where it's very precise and you can kind of hone in on stuff. But I always love just easy to use plugins that are just one knob, throw it on, adjust it the way you want, and leave it alone. So it's just like another plugin in your chain of processing. So I do love the simpler ones, and I do like saturators, and I feel like saturators should be simple. It's just making things warmer or brighter and all that kind of stuff. So you can choose from keep highs, keep low, neutral, and then you can just adjust the amount. So it's very easy to use. So now let's go into these one by one. So I'm going to play you a little demo here. So just something I made kind of for this, and we're going to try to make our main lead a little bit more warm and all that stuff. So that's why these are all in a little rack here, so I can turn these on and off. So I'll play you what I have without it, and then I'll play it with it. so those are all the plugins combined. So we're gonna just now take off some of these and show you one by one what these are doing. So now we're just gonna play the Nova 67p alone for a sec so you can hear it. So we'll solo this. So that one's a little bit more subtle because I didn't want to really use this or overuse it, but I can definitely tweak it so that it's very obvious when I'm doing this and what I'm using it for. But basically, I'm just kind of EQing and compressing these certain ranges. So this is kind of a tricky plugin to get used to because there's really nothing quite like this that I've used before. I've used a bunch of multi-band compression and EQ type plugins before, but this is kind of, or I guess I should say EQ and multi-band compression plugins, but this one is kind of odd because the ranges you want to EQ are also the ones you're going to compress, and we do have a bunch of options like the type of filters we could use, the type of bands we could listen to, so we could have them off, on, or solo it. So this is actually how I found it pretty effective to dial in settings. And we could also just have our dynamics kind of different, so we can also do split band, which is kind of a more multi-band approach, something like this. We could have normal, we could have emphasis, which is what I'm using here, and honestly there's a few other ones, but you really have to play around with this. I haven't spent enough time with this to know exactly when I would use any of these for what, but and in terms of the compression bar, this you see your threshold right here on the side. You adjust that, and you have your gain here. So if you this doesn't make it louder, this just adjusts the signal. So if you want to make it a little bit quieter or louder for the threshold, you know, that's what you use this for. And then of course you have your master volume right here, ratio, attack, release, sidechain. This does do external sidechain and internal sidechain and all that stuff. And up here we can see some other things like our bypass, our analyzers, the ones we want to watch. So we could look at the input, the output, the sidechain, all that stuff. So I like to keep it on output. We have the auto gain for the EQ. So pretty much our like makeup gain with a compressor. We have the modes, mono, stereo, unlinked, that kind of stuff. And finally we have filters. So we have a side of these little filters right here. So we have a interesting kind of range of high pass filters and low pass filters. So we have a 6 dB right here, so I wish there was more, but it's okay. It's a good plugin. And like I said, I was using this in a very subtle way, so maybe it was hard to notice what I was doing. So we'll definitely beef these up a bit more, and let's play this. So again, I don't know how much of this is going to be easy for you guys to tell the difference. I think this plugin definitely requires a more experienced kind of mixing engineer type of ear to hear the subtle differences and things. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't always need plugins that drastically change our sound. Sometimes just the little tweak plugins are exactly what you need. And a lot of engineers will prefer plugins that will do the subtle job sometimes. So it's just a different tool that you could use, and it's a very interesting tool. And I really do need to spend a lot more time with this because it's not like anything I've used before. It's two different kind of crazy things combined together, and you kind of need to play around with this and figure out when you would want to use it. So I wouldn't use this willy-nilly on everything. I just would use it on specific things that I think need that little touch-up. So that's a really fun plugin right there. So we'll turn it off for now, and we'll continue on to the saturation knob. So we'll turn it off and then on, so that way you can hear the difference. So for that part, I guess I could show you easily by just playing around with it what it kind of does. Doesn't really need a lot of explanation. It is a bit hard clippy towards the top when you really push it, and it can sometimes be very hard to hear. So I'm guessing it's just the thing I chose to use for this. It's kind of more of a side chain pumping sort of like lead. So it's very hard to hear the differences in that anyways. So we're going to move on now to the last one, which is kind of my favorite one of this week, the Amp Oleo. So this one is just really nuts. So we're going to turn off all the other ones, and again, I'll just solo this off and on so you guys can hear the difference. And this one will be a lot easier to hear than the other ones. So again, I thought I would just play around with it a bit. This one's a really fun plugin. It has a lot of presets already that you could use, but I feel like something like this, you kind of should play around with it first, get really comfortable, looking at the new plugin, because every time you get a new plugin, you need to kind of figure out where everything is first, I think, before you start playing around with it. And by the way, this also has a noise gate, so I think I played around with everything except the noise gate, which is pretty much a normal gate, but pretty cool because it works according to the bands that you've set. So this is really interesting, I think, more with loops. If you needed to get rid of maybe some lower frequency stuff or some higher frequency stuff in a loop, then I would come to this plugin for sure, and that would be really neat there. So I don't think it would be too great to show it on this thing, but we could definitely play around with this a bit and just see what we get. And like I said earlier, the equalizer is really more of our volume control. So if we had this at 200 on everything, it just makes this a lot louder. So like if I play this now. I guess we've looked at everything. We've talked about settings, and oh, it has a limiter as well. So honestly, this is just a really fun plugin to play around with. It's a good one to have. I don't remember if this was Mac and PC. I think these were all Mac and PC this week, maybe with the exception of the Nova, but I can't be too sure. Maybe it's this one that wasn't the Mac and PC one, but I will link that down below. I'll let you know in the description if it is or isn't. So thanks guys for watching, and of course, Blades.